Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Two World Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jacob, and I have with me today my other co-host, who is...
I am Barney.
And Barney and I are looking forward to talking with you today about the topic of coffee. It's something that is very interesting to both of us, and we each have our own stories related to coffee. It's something that we enjoy frequently and is a positive aspect of our week. And so we thought, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to explore this topic together? And so just to get us started, Barney, can you share with us a little bit about how you first got into drinking coffee?
That is a pretty interesting question. I guess I feel like it's kind of one of those stop and start things. I can't really pinpoint a time for sure, but I guess maybe one of the earliest times, youngest times I remember having coffee was at the Matsos restaurant. So we've had
Interesting.
we've had Chris on the show and Lee on the show, and their dad, Spiro, he had a restaurant which mainly served pizza, but also some sandwiches and a little Greek food here and there, as he was from Greece. And then one thing on the menu that he had was Greek coffee. And I remember my sister, who she was a server there for a while, and she talked about it, and I tried it once, and it it comes in a very tiny cup. The cup is maybe just 2 to 3 inches high, and just about that in the diameter, and or a little bit less, I guess. And it's very, very thick, but it's also very, very sweet. And I thought, wow, if this is coffee, this is pretty good. I could get into this. That was very great. But it's also very, very, very strong. And I think that from there, I guess maybe I mentioned again that one of the first times I had coffee was when I mentioned on our show about mentoring, was with my mentor at Worcester Mennonite, Rick Stayhauer. And I didn't know, but my dad knew that he was a big coffee drinker himself, and we both got coffees, and couldn't believe that he just started drinking his right away. And I thought, well, I guess that's the way you do it. And I had a very burnt mouth then for a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah. And then I learned the art of sipping from there. But yeah, and then I had times where, maybe I first kind of consistently started drinking coffee, I guess, toward the end of high school, I guess. There wasn't so much for high school kids to do around Worcester, where I grew up. So we often went to a restaurant called Country Kitchen. I'm not sure if it's the chain or not, but it was kind of on the one end of town, just a little bit out of town, and it's just kind of like a diner style. And at that time, I think that was to make it easier to drink coffee. I think that was when I kind of would add honey or something to the coffee to sweeten it up a little bit.
interesting.
Yeah,
That
that is the very
that
brief interview. Yeah, or
no, that was
introduction.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that Country Kitchen is a place where I went as a college student. I remember
Oh.
there weren't a lot of places that were open later in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly if you wanted to get some breakfast items. And so I remember going
Yeah.
there with Katie. Now I believe it has been changed into an Italian restaurant, Fiore's. I'm pretty sure that same
Oh,
building.
really?
So yeah, I think
Oh,
is that the one that was on Old 30, kind of near
yeah.
as you're heading out of town,
Right.
heading towards the bowling alley
Yeah.
and past that. Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an Italian restaurant now. So,
Yeah. Oh,
um,
wow.
but
Yeah.
that's so interesting. Okay, so you started younger than I did then, because
Mm-hmm.
um, the first time I tried coffee was in high school, and I was around some of my peers who liked coffee, and at that time I didn't. I just seen my
Mm-hmm.
mother drink it, and I smelled, the beans in the coffee aisle at the grocery store when you walk by, and thought, "Oh, that smells so good." But a new coffee shop came in um, to the certain neighborhood in Wheeling, near where my friends lived, and they were saying how good it was. So I went and tried it, and I didn't like it still. I enjoyed being with my friends, but it didn't quite, for my palate, it didn't quite pleased me. I didn't feel like, oh, that's worth it. But then a little bit more into adult life, I started going every so often to Starbucks and getting those iced drinks that are mostly sugar and
Ah,
whipped cream and chocolate
yeah,
chips and um, I'm trying to remember what they're called. Are they
frappuccino maybe.
frappuccinos?
Hmm.
But that I don't think that really counts
No,
for what we're
no.
talking about here. So it wasn't really until Katie and I were turning 40, and it was really Katie. She's like, we should try something new as we turn 40. Let's broaden our horizon. Why don't we start drinking coffee together? And I thought, you know what? Why don't we? So
Why
maybe my
not?
palate is different now that I'm a little bit older. So yeah, we started drinking coffee from Tulipan, the Hungarian
Mm,
pastry place in town, and it was really good. And I found myself, adding cream and sugar
mhm,
because I was so used to the sweetness,
mhm.
but really starting to enjoy the flavor. And it's so interesting because for our guests, Tulipan is a place that you and I have been able to go to, Barney.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I actually have a couple pictures that I wanted to share from Tulipan, if I can, for our
Yeah.
guests here. So I'm going to try to pull that up if I can here. And just to give people a sense of the place, since this was
Mhm.
where it started for me and Katie. So can you see that picture okay
Oh
in there?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the two of us in front of Tulipan.
Mhm.
Um, and they have a really ornate, beautiful window outside
Yeah.
their coffee shop. And then I actually also have a picture inside the coffee
Mm.
shop of a cup of coffee there that they typically serve up. And so you see the beautiful cup and saucer, and they have wonderful flavors. My favorite there for many years was creme brulee, and now I've gotten more into their decaf.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's one of my favorites. So that's how I got started. It was in my um, 40th year of life, and my wife Katie had said, "Let's do something new," and so we tried it, and we've gotten into it. And as we talk about this more, then it becomes like a hobby. You can try different types
Yeah.
of coffees, going to different
Mm.
places, and just trying different types of roasts, light roasts, dark roasts, espressos, things like that. And so I kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit and ask you, what type of coffee do you like to drink, and where do you usually get it from?
Yeah. What I tend to like bolder, darker coffees, I think. Um it's funny, I had a very similar experience as you said when shopping with your mom. It was same thing for me. My mom always would get Colombian coffee, and I remember when it was kind of a big deal when our grocery store kind of suddenly had these different bins of coffee that you would like measure out yourself, and it was so neat to see all of the different flavor, all of the different types. And I kept encouraging her, what about this espresso one, what's this, even though I didn't really know. And she's like, no, no, it has to be Colombian.
Oh,
um
interesting.
yeah, which so always Colombian, which is I think probably a little bit more mild. um but yeah, myself, um French roast or espresso blend, we have when I'm able, there is a coffee shop, or I guess kind of like a unique grocery store. They have lots of different items from different countries around the world, that really we can't really find anywhere else here in Japan. And they also have lots of coffee beans available.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and yeah, and it's nice. They have kind of like a scale, three different um, attributes that they have scaled out, like how bitter it is, or how you know maybe darkness. I can't think, to be honest, of what the three are, but it helps you kind of choose what maybe you're most interested in. But I think that I really like espresso coffees and richer coffees. I guess I don't know if there's any real reason why, but I guess maybe I just prefer the bold. flavor, and also it tends to go well with milk, and I enjoy adding milk to my coffee eventually. But I remember that soon after I moved to Japan, then I started taking Japanese lessons, and there was another guy there from Italy, and then he invited me over to lunch once, and he introduced me to the mocha pot. Are you familiar with those?
No.
Okay. The shape is kind of, it makes me think of an hourglass shape, but it's metal, and you put it on the stove. So you put a little bit of water in the bottom, and then it has like a little filter, a metal filter in top, and then you put espresso ground coffee, so real fine coffee over that, and then you screw the top on,
Oh,
and then
interesting.
it as the water boils, it percolates. It goes up through the top and then fills the top, and you have espresso. And I was fascinated with that, and he inspired me to actually go to that same coffee shop I mentioned earlier, grocery store, and buy my own version of that. Um, but one thing that he said to me that I loved, and I'm kind of translating the way he said it, but um, in Italy, he said that they have a saying that is kind of, no matter how bad life is, you can always add sugar to your espresso. So,
Nice.
espresso as itself is quite bitter, but you can always make things a little bit sweeter by adding sugar to it. So,
I like that,
yeah,
Barney.
yeah. But yeah, so that kind of started my journey of being interested in different ways of making coffee. Because up until then, my only idea was either um, the uh, the kind of percolated the coffee that you brew with a coffee maker, or like those super fancy espresso machines that are so expensive, but some people maybe have them at their home. And I didn't realize how much there was in between. And so I had the mocha pot, and then I had the French press, and then I had the K cups, and then um, now we do like a paper filter, one cup at a time. With um, we don't we don't use the gooseneck um, pot, but we actually use a cast iron um,
Ah,
Japanese teapot that I don't know if we're supposed to or not, but it's perfect for pouring. And then I've even upped my game further by asking for a cocktail shaker for my birthday. So when we make iced coffee, then I pour the espresso in there on ice with
oh,
milk and a little honey, and then just shake it until it's nice and cold. Then you can have nice um, cold iced coffee. So
wow, Barney.
it's
That's
pretty
incredible.
serious over here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating to me. The other day, we were in a local coffee shop here called Sure House, and I definitely want to talk about that one a little bit more in a bit. But I noticed that they had this device, this instrument for making coffee, and it's very similar to what you were describing with the mocha pot.
Mm.
And it was just sitting on display for decoration on one of the counters. And I asked the barista about it, and she
Mm.
explained the process, and it was very similar. It might be a mocha pot or something that operates in a very similar concept. So that's so funny that I just learned about that, within the past week, and here it connects with what you're doing. So I love it. Um, well, can I show you a couple of gadgets that we use here
Oh yeah.
in when we're doing coffee? We got this device here, which is called an air press. For those who are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. But for those who are just listening, I'll describe it to you. There are two parts to it. There is a cylinder, and at the bottom it screws off, and you can put a little paper filter in, and then you fill the cylinder with your ground coffee, and then you actually pour water into the cylinder till it comes up to the top, and then you let it sit for a little bit, and then you put this other part of the device on, and then you press it downward, and as you do, it pushes the coffee through that filter that you have on the bottom right into your cup. And so it does a pretty good cup of coffee.
Mm.
It's not our favorite method, but we actually bought it to do more cold brew coffee. But
Oh
um,
yeah.
if you're trying to do it quickly, this is a really good device for going quickly, and it does a pretty good job. But the thing that we use most often is the French press. And so this concept, many people probably know of it already, but is you put your ground coffee into this metal pitcher, and you pour in the hot water and you stir it and let it sit for about 4 minutes or so. And then you put the press on top and you press it down till it pushes the coffee down to the bottom. And then the press itself, the bottom of it has like this little filtration system. And so then when you pour from the pitcher out into your coffee cup, it holds the grounds in the bottom. And I think that does a really nice cup of coffee. So that's what we do. And we get our coffee mostly from Sure House. And I have a screenshot I want to share of that, just of their, I mentioned before Tulipan, how they had a decorative window. Well, Sure House also has a nice window, and I want to share that. This is how they decorated their window around Christmas time. They actually had like a mural from The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and they had it at the front of their coffee shop. But that's a really wonderful local place, and we get our coffee from there. And there's a really interesting story I want to share about that place just quickly. During the pandemic, when you really could only have takeout orders of food or other items from restaurants and coffee places, Sure House did something really interesting. They would write on people's cups little inspirational messages.
Oh, wow.
And this is a cup that we got during that time when we got our coffee to go. And you can see at the top of the cup, for those who are watching the video, it says, "Keep looking up." And I thought, oh, that's a lovely idea to write some inspirational messages, so that when we get home to drink our coffee and we sit down and we actually look at the cup more closely, we had a positive word for us there. So yeah, so I'm very grateful for that place. This is what their bags of coffee look like.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. So did you like Sure House? I know you've tried that.
Yeah. My parents even mentioned it a few years ago. So it was, and then we went there, and then it was nice just our last visit in July to go there again a few times. And yeah, the people who work there are very delightful, and it totally makes sense that they even went the extra step to write those nice messages, and the coffee was just really delicious. I was really happy with that.
Oh, good. Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, Barney, when you're drinking coffee, do you have any favorite mugs that you go to quite frequently?
Oh, yeah. I think I kind of have the bigger is better philosophy. So I even have this mug here.
Ooh, nice.
I got it on discount. It's Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. Minnie Mouse giving Mickey Mouse a kiss, and them both kissing on the other side. I got it for Ayako, but I think I've kind of taken it over just because it's one of our biggest mugs. And that one I use a lot for coffee. And yeah, I think, but it's interesting to think about coffee and what you drink it out of, because whenever when I was growing up and we would have company over, especially like when my mom's sister and husband would come up, my aunt and uncle, or my grandma, and we used the fine china, and then we would have coffee afterwards in those cups. And I don't know what it was, even when I was younger, boy, drinking coffee out of those cups, it just made it taste better. I don't know if that's true or not, but I really, and everyone else agreed. They thought, wow, it just really tastes better out of these cups. And I can't say why. There must be something out there about that, if it's true or not true. And if it is true, then why? But everyone echoed that notion. We all had the notion that was so. But yeah, otherwise I often take my coffee with me in a thermos. So that's one of the main ways. But even my and then at work I usually pour it into a mug. So my coworker, she she said to me, why do you bring your coffee in a thermos but then pour it into a mug? And I said, well, I just feel that it tastes better because it has the chance to cool off just a little bit. Like the steam
Mm,
gets out a little bit, and I think
yes.
that that affects the taste. And if it's in a vacuum flask, then it's always hot, it's really hot
Yes.
coffee, and I feel that you can enjoy it a little bit better after it sits for a little bit. But then she understood that, but that's about the main ways that I go for the coffee. Um, but how about for you guys at your house?
Yes. Well, I want to show a few mugs here. This mug is gray with kind of a slate
Mm,
blue pattern on it, almost like a
mm-hmm,
series of fans beside each other.
mm-hmm.
And Katie found this, and it says it's stoneware, 180 degrees stoneware, and she just thought it was the most delightful little coffee mug.
Yeah.
And little did she know when she would bring this home, it would be coveted because everybody in the house will use this mug when they see it. Micah would go by and fill it with water and get a quick drink of water, or Aubrey or Hannah, and so rarely was it ever available just to Katie. So what we have done, we recently bought a rack that we can hang our mugs on. And now
Mm-hmm.
that it's kind of hung off to the side, it seems to be a little bit more set apart. So that's kind of funny.
Oh
And then
yeah.
this mug here
Mm.
is pretty. It has, I would say, kind of a grayish tan foundation, but on the
Mhm.
top, around where the lip of the mug is this beautiful blue um, pattern. Well, not a pattern, a beautiful blue accent. And this comes
Mhm.
from a pottery place in Virginia, near Harrisonburg, Virginia. And
Oh.
Katie's good friend got this for her. So this is a new favorite. And
Mhm.
then the last coffee mug I'll show is from a place that Katie and I visited this past summer. And this is kind of a white cup with straight lines of blue going down the cup. And when
Uh-huh.
you get close to the bottom, you can see there's a little texture for
Yeah.
where that paint ends when the blue streaks come
Mm.
down. And this
Mhm.
was something that we got at Crail, which is a small fishing village on the coast of Scotland, just a little bit ways from maybe maybe 25 minutes by car away from St. Andrews. And so when we went this summer, we knew that it was famous for its pottery. So we
Ah.
bought a set of 4 of these little coffee
Oh.
cups. So those are among our most prized coffee mugs in the house. And
Mm.
it's kind of neat. Like you said, the aesthetics, what you're looking at while you're drinking the coffee can enhance the experience. And I think having a favorite mug and looking at it, appreciating its beauty or its familiarity
Mhm.
does add
Mhm.
to the experience. And
Mhm.
um, like you said too, like finding um, the best way that you like to drink it. Like you poured out of your thermos into a mug because you wanted it at a certain temperature. So each person has their own unique
Mhm.
preferred way. Um, I was kind of wondering, do you have any kind of funny stories about coffee or mishaps related to coffee, spills or times where you didn't get your coffee and you were dragging or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I just had one of those not too recently. Um, I, I was really busy going out the door, and I didn't have a chance to make my coffee, and then of course I realized on the train, and I thought, oh man, what am I going to do? I've got to have my coffee, and I thought, okay, there's a Starbucks on the way in between the two train stations. I'll check in there. But then I thought to myself, since I'm so frugal, I thought, but if I have the tumbler, the thermos that they have, or any thermos actually for Starbucks, um, here at least I know they give you discounts with that. Okay, all right. So then I got on my phone and I started checking the different thermoses. Oh, this is kind of nice. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll go to Starbucks, buy a thermos, and um, fill it up with regular coffee, and I'll be set. And then I went to the Starbucks, and the selection was, since it's a smaller store, smaller shop, since it's in just in the train station, the selection was just a little bit limited and not quite my style. And I should have just stuck with it and gotten the coffee anyway. But then I thought, oh, there's one more coffee shop inside the train station. So this Starbucks is in between. So inside, okay, I'm going to go there. I know the brand. Ayako used to work there. My wife used to work there for a part-time job when she was in high school, but not at this one, but the one in the airport. It's a chain, so it's kind of a nice memory. Okay, I'll go there. And then I looked at the prices and I thought, oh boy, wow, these prices are a lot higher than what I remember them being. Whoa. And so I thought, okay, I'll ask them for a medium-sized coffee. And they gave me a medium-sized coffee. And I promise you that this just happens to be on my desk, but this is a pretty accurate size. They put it on the counter, and it was just about this size.
Oh my
of
goodness.
medium. Maybe it was maybe 80 milliliters or so.
Oh wow.
It was very small
A mini.
and very mini. And I looked at it and I said, I was just shocked because in part because I had been looking forward to it so much. And then the staff stared at me and then they said, is there something wrong? And I just said, it's so much smaller than I thought it would be. And then they said, well, yeah, I mean, that's the size. So, some shops have the kind of empty cups arranged so you know what you're getting into.
Oh.
And then I said, I'm sorry, I just can't pay like $3 for this. And then they said, okay, we understand. And I said, I'm sorry, I just can't feel like I could do that. I feel like I'm not quite getting my money's worth.
Right.
And then
right.
they said, fine, yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah. And then I got on the train. And then I thought, oh, let's see, there's a McDonald's that's nearby. And I know that the size is pretty good there, but I don't quite have enough time to go there and then get on the bus. And then I got on and I thought, what am I going to do? I've had these 3 different ideas and I still don't have my coffee. And then on the bus, I thought, oh, yes, there's a convenience store just by the bus stop. And that size should be just fine.
Oh, good.
So then I kind of got off the bus, backtracked a bit, and got a large coffee. And I felt very confident about the size and the price, the performance there. And then got my coffee for the day. And
wonderful.
Yeah, so that was one of the journeys. And kind of another thing related to Starbucks is, I don't know if they do this in America, if you've ever run into this or anyone out there listening or watching along has run into this, but every once in a while here, you get if you're watching the register and then all of a sudden a big long receipt comes out, and then if oh, I kind of just won the lottery, because it entitles you to, if you fill out a survey, it entitles you to a free tall drink, tall size drink of anything you want. And the staff, even, they kind of, in Japan, they even kind of explain it. They're like, you kind of just won a prize, and I even just this year, from last year, I got one in December, and then I got another one in January, and my Ayako was with me at the time, and the staff is like, they always say, have you ever gotten one of these before? It's like, yeah, I actually just got one once last month. And she's and Ayako's like chimes in, she's like, yeah, he gets these all the time. And the staff is like, I've never even gotten one. and then I've maybe gotten 4 or 5 of these, and I realized the survey itself, it's just like, are the staff nice? Are the bathrooms clean? Did they greet you or something like that? And then I realized that this is probably, I can't confirm this, is probably my hunch, is that the survey is not so much about how the store is. The survey is more they're surveying you as to, what does this person order if they have carte blanche? If they can order anything, what will they order? So I think that's what they're most interested in, and I kind of know that's true, because once I ordered a shaken espresso there, but in Japan we don't have shaken espresso, so it was all a custom order. And even though the person kind of typed it in on the register, she still made a memo on the back of the receipt, everything that I had ordered. So it seems that they need to kind of keep track of what people are doing with these free drinks. So it kind of makes it even more fun because you think I'm
Wow.
kind of influencing the direction of the coffee that they're going to offer
Oh,
here.
nice.
If I can come up with some really cool order.
Oh, wow. I love that. You
Yeah.
have such interesting stories. Oh my goodness. Mine, my stories are going to seem super lame, but in comparison, but that's okay. I love it. I love those. Um, so, so my story is more about a lack of dexterity and blundering a little bit. Katie and I typically would go on a date once a week in the morning, and Tulipan or Panera or Sure House were
Mhm.
often the three locations that we would rotate between. And um, this one morning, we had all of our breakfast there before us, and Katie was relaxing, enjoying her nice coffee, taking in the visuals, taking in the wonderful aromas from the food, and drinking and sipping. And I went to get a refill, and wouldn't you know, when I come back, I somehow managed to spill my coffee and knock over her coffee and
Oh,
get it all over our breakfast
oh
and
no.
all over the
Oh no.
table and all over Katie's outfit.
Oh.
It was just a nightmare. And she was very gracious about it after the initial shock of, ah!
Yes, yes, yes. It's quite
Just
hot.
kind of like, what happened? And I said, I don't know. I think I was carrying it with a saucer, and I jostled the saucer too quickly, and then my cup tipped, and then I tried to compensate
Oh
to
yeah.
catch it, and when I scooped to catch it, I knocked over other stuff, and then but the staff were really helpful and kind, and they swooped in and helped clean up, and we were
Oh
able
good.
to
Oh yeah.
salvage the rest of the date, but and enjoy ourselves. But it was definitely a blunder with coffee, that's for sure. So, and then interestingly enough, I've gone to lunch before with peers, and I'm going to try to get the freshly brewed tea, and it
Mhm.
happens to be right beside the coffee. Like the containers look similar or things like that, and it's happened two
Uh-huh.
times now. Once I went to the Spoon, and I was expecting to have nice cup of iced tea, and I poured in the coffee, not realizing it, and sat down on my seat and took a bite of my sandwich, and then went to take a big
Oh
swig of
dear.
my tea, and then it was coffee. I thought, oh my. And then the second time was yesterday. I went with some friends to Panera, and their coffee and tea are right beside each other. I wasn't paying much attention, and I did the same thing yesterday. So that can happen too, unfortunately. But yeah. Anyway.
that
uh,
that in a way it reminds me of a story that Ayako tells where her grandmother is an interesting character. And for some reason her grandma thought that Ayako, when she was in sixth grade, it's time for her to drink coffee. And then so she's, invited her over to her room in the house there, and then they sat down together and she prepared coffee for her. And then she said, this coffee is a little bit bitter, so let's add some sugar. So she added sugar into both of their coffees and stirred it up and gave it to Ayako. And Ayako just made this face, and she said, "There's this coffee. There's just something wrong with this coffee." And grandma grandma got a little bit annoyed. Why are you? Because especially back then, coffee was definitely a treat. And what's wrong? Why aren't you appreciating this coffee like you're supposed to? And then Ayako found out that instead of putting in sugar, she was putting in salt.
oh man, that is so funny. What did her grandma say when she figured it out? Did she, was
So
she
yeah, so finally she figured out. Then she took both of the cups away and got rid of them. But before she realized what was going on, yeah,
what an introduction to coffee, right?
yeah, really, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. In all of your travels or things that you've done, have you had any kind of exotic or unusual coffees?
yes. One time when I was studying abroad at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem
Mm-hmm.
in the summer of 2000, which we talked about in, I think, our second episode
Yeah.
of the podcast, several of the students who were Palestinian um, invited me to have coffee with them.
Mm,
And I didn't realize at the time what a generous and hospitable action that was, because there's a whole tradition around serving Arabic coffee to a guest, and you use a certain cup and you brew it in a certain way, and it's meant to be a sign of hospitality and generosity. And so there we were sitting just there in the front of the Resnick dorm, and they have their coffee um, pot brewing
mm,
there, and it did a unique method. And I don't know yet the treat that I'm in for. Just I'm just talking with them and conversing, and then they pour it in little cups, and it reminds me a lot of how you described the Greek
mhm,
coffee, thicker, in small cup, and you know they you can add sugar to it. And at the time I was not a coffee drinker, but it was a treat, even though I wouldn't normally think to seek it out, just to sit there with them and to have that coffee. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was a little bit less filtered when it was
mhm.
served than some of the coffees that maybe I'm used to drinking now. So there might have been some more residue of the coffee bean in the liquid. But yeah, that was a real treat. So how about for you?
Yeah, I have had the chance to have so at the medical school where I worked, we had a number of international students from Myanmar or Indonesia or Vietnam, and Vietnamese coffee. So, like the coffee beans grown in Vietnam, I'm not sure if it's the soil or what or the temperature, but it tastes very different from coffee that you find from Africa or South America, and it's really one of my favorite. I really like that taste. But then occasionally we would have like an international day or like in once a month or so, and one time the theme was and had different themes. One time the theme was coffee, and they had lots of different coffees for us that we could try, and coffee from Myanmar and coffee from Vietnam, and then they said, "Okay, everyone, now." First of all, we're sorry that everyone just gets a little bit of this, but we have, I think it's called kopi luwak. So it's from Indonesia, and it's coffee that the civet, kind of like a raccoon type animal, has eaten, and then not eaten, and then they take it, and then they I guess it gets fermented while it's in the animal, and then they roast it from there. And then they said, this is one of the students brought this, and we're going to brew. We brewed as much as we could, but it's just going to be a little bit for each person. And um, I I had never tried anything like that. I was familiar that I think Jamaican Blue Mountain comes about by a similar way. I think it's just a different animal, and it did taste. It was interesting because it was rich but mild, so it wasn't bitter like you would think it would be when it
Huh.
looks so rich and dark, and it was very smooth and very very delightful. Um, and kind of in a way, thinking of exotic or interesting coffees, um, just this summer, my dad's coffee maker, it's like missing one small part or something, is what my sister said. And then so like sometimes the coffee grounds would like it would have trouble if we put more coffee grounds in it, it would have trouble getting the whole thing brewed. So we would do the best that we could, and my sister and her family drank some. But then I thought, well, this again going back to my frugality, I thought, well, I wonder what would happen if we ran some water and threw it again. So then I took out the compartment and kind of scooped down the filters, the coffee beans that were coffee grounds that were on the side, scooped them back down in the middle, and then ran like 1 cup's worth of coffee through it again. And it was probably, this is just me only, but it was delightful. It was very bitter, um,
Oh, interesting.
and very rich and strong. And I thought, boy, this is the perfect cup of coffee for me, because I just loved that bitterness to it. There was something about it that was just really good. But I I was so enthused about it that I said to Ayako, I said, hey, you know, I've got 2 cups of coffee for you, here. See if you can tell. See if you can tell the difference between these two. And then she's like, well, yes, this one has been gone through a second time. It's very bitter. And I thought, well, don't you like it? And she's like, no, not really. I
Well,
think maybe it's just
to each their own, right?
that, as we were saying, each person has a different way of enjoying their coffee.
That's interesting. Yes. Well, another aspect of this conversation that I wanted to share about is where my wife works. She works at Smucker's, and they actually have a number of coffee brands in their portfolio of brands.
Oh, wow.
And I just pasted a list in the chat,
Yeah.
like Folgers, Dunkin' Donuts,
Mm-hmm.
Cafe Bustelo,
Mm-hmm.
let's see, Roland Coffee, 1850,
Mm-hmm.
Cafe Escapes, Millstone. So coffee is a
Wow.
huge part of what they do. And when Katie first started working there, actually, they showed her and the other employees who were starting a video of in this farm to table series where they take uh, those employees through the whole process of how coffee is um, harvested and all the aspects of moving it from that point until it's produced and sold. And so I actually noticed when I visited her that in one part of the building where she is, they have a visual diagram of this
Oh.
same process. And I thought it would be kind of interesting just to take a moment and think about coffee in the bigger sense of how each cup that gets to us has an immense amount of work and intentionality and planning behind it. So, yeah, so here's a picture of that diagram. And you can see in the upper left, somebody actually getting the beans out in the field, and then they're processed. And as you move along, they're milled and then shipped. And then as you go further down on the diagram to the bottom left, they're stored and then they're roasted and they're ground and they're packed and they're brewed. And all of this gets it to our cup. And I just am in awe
Mm-hmm.
when I think about that process. And it makes me appreciate more what's in the cup before me when I drink it, thinking, oh, so many
Mm.
hands have touched this, so many, people have helped convey this to where it is to the point where I can enjoy it. And so I think that probably also opens up the whole um, dimension of discussion of thinking about like locations where coffee is grown and harvested from, and then also the ethics surrounding the
Mm-hmm.
business of
Mm-hmm.
coffee. So here's another picture from the wall there in the Smucker building where my wife works, and you see here they have different coffee regions around the world. The Americas, where they have the floral and the citrus north and the rich body cocoa coffee. And then they have Brazil, the nutty, wild acidity. Then they have coffee, a region, East Africa. And they have a region in Asia where they get their coffee beans from. And so it's it's interesting that it's truly an international phenomenon, but it also is interesting too to think about like how we've probably over time had to come to grips with how we need to be aware of where the coffee's coming from and make sure people are fairly compensated along the way. A lot of companies try to be responsible and help consumers understand that, so that since the process is so long and involved, that at each step, um, people are cared for and it's not exploitative. So it seems like a lot of companies now are trying to, highlight that, and Smuckers included, that they get their coffee ethically, and it supports people and helps them where they are, and not um, something that is contrary to that. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about regions of the world where coffee comes from, or the whole question of like with any industry and business, how do you make sure that the whole sweep of the people involved with it are cared for, and um, then when you get the final product, you feel like, oh, everybody was honored along the way.
Yeah, I wonder if it kind of gets back to kind of in a way Ayako's story with her grandma, how coffee for a long time was thought of as a luxury. Um, I think even in um, oh, the name of the book has slipped my mind, but there's a book I can think of from the 1800s or so where coffee was really thought of as such an extravagant thing, and um, yeah, I think back then maybe people understood a lot easier how hard it was to come by something that's like coffee, and it had a real rarity to it. And then now it's just so much easier to get to that, and so many different brands and types and ways to have it that, yeah, I think for probably most of the people, myself included, until you showed me that picture, a lot of us wouldn't know how extensive it is to get the coffee. I mean, we all have an idea. Oh, well, this comes from Brazil or it comes from here or there, but that's just where it comes from. And then it arrives, somehow, but not doesn't take that long. Um, yeah, and then being able, and then now we do see more, like bird friendly coffee, or ethically, coffee that expressly it says that it is the coffee growers are being compensated, and not cheated out of the hard work that they're doing. But I really feel like it's something that, since it's one of the number one drinks for so many people, that there should be some campaign or some way that kind of does it in an interesting way to convey to people, just how much it takes to make your cup of coffee, and kind of appreciate um, this kind of luxury in a way that we get to have, maybe every day or more than once a day. Um,
That's well said, Barney. That's
mhm.
well said. Well, I wanted to ask before we would conclude our time today, did you want to share any of the pictures that you had prepared? I was able to share mine already.
Yeah. I couldn't quite think of a good segue, a good way to get some of these in here, but they're kind of fun. So if you'll just indulge me here, first
Absolutely.
I'll just go back to the beginning here.
That
So
sounds good.
thinking of I think a lot of us like to start our day with coffee, like I was even mentioning myself. So there was a trip where we were driving, and I thought it was a long drive, and I thought to myself, I've just got to have a coffee. So we stopped at this kind of
I love that
roadside stop.
picture.
Yes. And there we go. I got my coffee. I had to have it. And apparently the kids, they had to have their ice cream. So
I love that. Yes, for those
yeah,
who are just listening in, it's a picture of Barney seated at the table with Yuma and Silas, and they're happily eating ice cream. And then Barney has a coffee right there in the center
yes,
before him.
just
So
right. We're all happy. But kind of, and then think of how much coffee I have and appreciate coffee. This is a collage that Google Photos
oh,
sometimes makes collages of the different coffees, or
these
the
are your
different
coffee, your
themes.
photos.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
This is
That's
actually just one of two.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So, this talks about latte art. A lot of these photos are lattes, and then they have the different designs that the baristas put on there. Um,
Wow. I love those. Very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And are you familiar with this?
I
The
am. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
kind of thinking of our talk of how we enjoy our coffee. This is a fun way to do it with a stroopwafel. Um, so to have a nice hot cup of coffee, and then put a the Dutch dessert, I guess, snack on top, which is kind of like real thin waffles with caramel in between, and then it warms them up, and it's very delicious. Um, and can you guess the the what the occasion for this picture?
Mother's Day.
Yeah, I guess in a way it kind of is true.
Taking breakfast to Ayako while she's in bed.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I could do such a nice job. This actually is one of Ayako's meals when she was in the hospital after giving birth.
Oh.
So
Really?
yeah, yeah. So
What a
this is
lovely meal.
quite different, yeah, than what you expect to see. Just so this was at the clinic where she had probably Silas, and this is the type of meal that she would have for this was her lunch, and
Can
they
you tell
always
our audio listeners what we were looking at?
oh sure yeah so she has a little I think it's potoff, kind of a soup that has a sausage and some potatoes and carrots and broccoli, and then a hard boiled. And the main dish is a hard boiled egg with a little ham and some cucumbers and tomato, and then some fresh bread and a little bit of fruit, and then a coffee
Wow.
and some milk, and it's all really nicely arranged. And yeah, she always looked forward. She looked forward to the meals that they gave her there. They were always something like this, and it was neat that we always kind of wonder, if you're nursing, how soon should you have coffee? Make does it does it make it harder to get the baby to go down? But even here, they gave the moms coffee. They knew that it was something that maybe they kind of deserved, after their hard work.
I like that.
And
Wow.
yeah, and then um, this was just a bakery there. I've got a picture of some crusty breads and different breads and a
Mm,
nice coffee that you could get there.
it's nice.
And then speaking
Oh,
of different ways, here's me with my French press at a restaurant that Ayako and I like. And here is a siphon.
ah,
So at this restaurant, they're known for their siphon coffee, which I think that the coffee starts, the brewing process involves a flame and it ends up siphoned into this kind of flask, I guess, and an
amazing.
orbital flask, and then you just pour it from there.
Wow. I love
Yeah,
that.
and then
Wow.
just a little bit of latte
Beautiful.
art. Yeah,
Beautiful.
this was at one of our favorite restaurants in Vietnam,
Wow.
and then kind of thinking of the idea of coffee, like you were saying, um, you know, how far do you stray away until it's still called coffee? And then this is a picture. I think it's kind of like a Viennese coffee, maybe. So it was a real rich coffee, and then on the top is whipped cream, and then dried strawberries that they put on
Oh,
top of it too.
wow. Oh, that looks
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and it was from the Tully's Coffee Company, which I think is a British chain, but we don't really get it. I've never seen it in America though. And then finally, in Japan, here we have a lot of chilled coffee, is what they call it. Chilled
Mm,
coffee. It's kind of like packaged coffee that you can get in the. It's kind of like prepared coffee that is in a container that you get in the grocery store. In the dairy, I guess, kind of around that. It's chilled, obviously, and then you just stick a straw in it, and then drink it that way. And one of the most popular brands here is called Mount Rainier. I'm not sure exactly
ah,
the inspiration for it. And so after our wedding, when we went to Washington State, we hiked around Mount Rainier and we took a a Mount Rainier
I
coffee with
love
us and
that. It's
had
like
our picture with
meta.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thank you for letting me share those though. And yeah, I
Did
think
you
it's just
have
good.
that in the back of your mind as something you wanted to do when you were there? Where you kind of,
Yeah,
yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah. I
we
mean,
we took that with us
it took quite a
intentionally.
bit
Yeah,
of,
during
yeah,
the
intentionality.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
I
right.
love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, maybe since you had shared those stories and I like them, I love how each type of coffee was so different and you
Hmm.
enjoyed them in different ways at different times in your life. It made me think of one more example
Oh,
that
good.
I could share real quickly
Hmm.
from my end. When Katie and I were on vacation in Holland, Michigan last year, um, we do a lot of things with our family, of course, because it's family vacation. So that's
Uh-huh.
what our focus is. But one morning we got away to this bakery and it was just heavenly to sit there and to drink our coffees and enjoy a little bit of time, just focus on the two of us. We were looking forward to getting back together with the rest of the kids and doing our schedule for that day. But just that moment, the two of us were there in that place. It's called De Bouwers, and this kind of Dutch
Yeah.
bakery and coffee place. And we just loved it so much. And so I had to take a picture from that moment. And here's a picture of the mug that says the Bowers on the front. And one of our guests who we had on the show a while back, Michael Ludwig, is from Holland, Michigan, and
Oh,
he's
wow.
the one who told me about this place. And so I'm so grateful he did. Thank you, Michael, because we really loved going there. It was a real treat. So yeah, so sometimes coffee is part of a reprieve where you're getting away from maybe busyness or a time when you're with a larger group of people, and then you're just getting some time with just maybe your spouse or just even yourself. So I also like that about coffee, how it's kind of can be associated with that idea of rest or retreat or getting away. So yeah.
Yeah, it's we are glad that you guys tuned in, that everyone out there tuned in with us today or is watching with us today, and heard us talk extensively about our fondness and the ways that we appreciate coffee. Something that, as I understand, started, so many hundreds of years ago with an Ethiopian goat herder, and he noticed, why is it that these goats are so active whenever they eat these berries? And from there, then people started to think maybe there's something to this coffee tree. And we hope that thinking about the stories that we've shared have made you realize how broad the topic of coffee is, and how many different ways there are to enjoy it, especially the different feelings it invokes, such as hospitality, friendship, and despite all the caffeine, even a chance to sit down and take things easy once in a while. And we appreciate you tuning in with us, and we hope that you, as we are looking for the next episode, and we'll see you then.